right, I am back. I hope the wind isn't too much of a problem here. I'm going to walk through some of the basics of panning for gold along a river with a few basic tools. I'm talking about a small shovel, a pick and a classifier, and a large gold pan. So I'm going to walk you through how I go about that for sampling on a river and bring you along. I wanted to just give a big thank you to my subscribers. I'm just getting started here and I could use all the support and help that I get. Thank you very much. Let's get started. All right, so we have a few basic tools for this panning. We've got a nice little pick here and a small shovel. We've got one of the best classifier screens that you could ever get. This is going to be a great one for a lot of different situations. I use this one the most, more than any. This is a 1/4 inch classifier. And also I got a nice heavy duty large gold pan. So we got a gold pan, we've got some basic tools. Now, most importantly, out of everything here is that you can pick a location where you think may have gold. So what I've got in front of you is what I think is probably a pretty good gold trap when the water is at flood stage, when gold is possibly moving down the river. We are talking about, 4 or 5 feet above the river. Current level, you've got this massive root on bedrock coming through below large giant bedrock. You got some nice cobble down in this area. Where I'm going to focus is right at the top of the root. All right, now we've got, move that stuff out of the way. Got good reason to believe that this area here has been pummeled really hard when there's a flood, and for good reason. This material here has remained here, hasn't been able to be washed out. You've got this root here which acts kind of like a riffle in a sluice box. You've got cobbles that have obviously not been washed out, so the hope is that there is gold in there as well. We won't know until we pan it out, so let's take a look and see. A lot of these larger rocks we can just get out of here. You don't even need to classify those because it's just a waste of time. Just grab them and get them out of here. We want to get down to the finer material. This particular area, the largest piece of gold I found. Naturally, you got to watch where you're grabbing. I gotta take a look in there. Hey, look at that. I don't know what the heck that is, but looks like maybe a motorcycle part, or not really sure. You always want to watch where you're putting your hands in places like this, and in a lot of cases in rivers you got to watch out for broken glass. Okay? Here's a good sign. Here's a good sign right here. This is a 22 shell that remains there. There you are. Probably because it's iron, so it didn't get washed out. Hopefully that's the same situation for gold. Little 22 shell, rim fire. All right. Now the advantage of having a classifier is pretty awesome because you can classify out this material. I'm going to just try to do one pan here. So I'm going to scrape down a little ways. I'm going to scrape down a little bit. I'm trying to feel out what's down here. I can feel some other kind of rock down in here. I don't really want to get just what's on the surface. I want to try to dig down a little bit because that's where the better gold would be or should be. Trying to determine if that's a separate rock like a cobblestone or if that's a piece of this bedrock. And it looks to me like it's a piece of this bedrock. So there's a crack here. And that's good also. But that's a piece of the bedrock. I can tell by the way it's shaped and by its edges. Anyway, I'm going to get some of this out. The classifier takes out the larger particles so that the gold does not have to compete with the larger particles. So now I've got my pan and my classifier here. I'm going to shovel into it. You see large rocks, you can just take them out, just throw them out with your hand, or just the screen will take them out. I get in there and grind out the dirt clods, grind the roots, grind them into the pan. The largest gold I've ever found in this location, or not right in this location, but in this area, is the size of a large flake of oatmeal. Everything else has been smaller, so I'm expecting to find small gold, like you know, the tip of a needle, maybe like flecks of black pepper. That's a, you know, I really haven't found too much except for some of those larger pieces I told you about in years past. Now we've got a combination of decomposed granite and small river cobbles in here. We're going to throw those off to the side. Take a few more scoops out of here. And I don't know if you guys watched it or not, but I got another video about panning. Short video about panning with only a gold pan. And I put 4 little pieces of lead in that pan just to make sure that I was panning correctly. And they got down, and that I was able to retrieve the lead. I'm going to do the same thing for this video. I've got some little, I've got some red painted lead that a friend of mine gave to me. And this is the kind of thing that you can use to test your panning skills. I've got 5 little pieces of lead there. So let me hold on to those, and I'm going to put the lid back on this. This is something that I do out in the deserts for dry panning. And also, come on. And you can also do it when you're panning normally to test yourself. Well, that lid does not want to go on there. Okay, I'm going to put it in my pocket. Classify out the rest of this here. Okay, classifier's empty. I've got, you know, not a full pan, but a pretty full pan. I'm going to take those 5 little pieces of colored lead, put them in my pan, and we're going to go down to the river and pan this out. Using lead is a great way to test your skills panning, and it's also a great way to learn how to pan faster. This is a large pan, but whether you're using a large pan or a small pan, the same movements apply for panning. First one is you want to liquefy. You know, if your material's dry, particularly, you want to liquefy that material. If your material's wet, it's going to be easier, but it's of primary importance to liquefy thoroughly all your material. You can see there's quite a bit of organics, just organic material that's floating off to the top. But you have to thoroughly liquefy. This is an initial part of panning for gold that you don't want to do it halfway. You want to liquefy that material completely. once it's all the way liquefied, you're going to go, in this case there's a lot of organics. I'm just going to sort of rock the pan back and forth a little bit and let some of that light stuff just wash off. Just get that organic material out of the pan. All right, now the second movement, or what I like to really call the first, is stratification. After liquefying, you want to stratify that material. You want to go back and forth, or you can go in a circle, or you can do some of both, sort of like a cradle, back and forth, back and forth. You don't want to let it slosh out of the pan, but you need to stratify very, very aggressively. You need to stratify that material, and what I mean by that is that you're letting the heavier elements work themselves down through the lighter elements and get on the bottom of the pan. This is critical, and especially in this first or maybe the second stratification, but I think the first one is the most important. You want to stratify the heck out of that pan and get that heavy material to work its way through to the bottom of that pan without question. Now keep in mind where your riffles are on your pan. I like to put my riffles in my right hand so I know when I'm shaking, when I'm stratifying, that I can dip it down to my right hand, so everything on the bottom of that pan will slide down the bottom of the pan and into the right corner, right below the riffles. So I'm going to stratify. Now I'm going to sort of tip it towards my right hand. I'm holding it at like a 30-degree angle while I'm stratifying. I'm getting all the heavies down in that corner of that pan below the riffles. Now when I do that to my satisfaction, I'm going to turn it around so you can see it on the camera, and I'm going to lift and drain the water out. What this does is it locks that material in place, and now I can do the second and the stratification, and then the next step is to dip and lift. You're going to dip it in the water and lift it out, straight up and down. Dip and lift. Dip, dip and lift. And lift, dip and lift. You're going to wash that material out. You've got to get that material out. You don't want to take a lot of time doing it. You do that for a few times, or 5 or 6 times. You wash out those stones, those light stones. They're not gold. The gold is locked in the bottom of that pan right now because you drained the water out. You can wash out that upper material. I usually do it maybe 6 or 7 or 8 times, something like that. And then I bring all the material back and I re-stratify towards my right hand, back and forth, go overboard a little bit, it's okay, doesn't do any harm. Re-stratify it down towards your right hand or towards whichever hand you're going to use. I get it all the way down on that bottom of the pan, below the riffles. I'm going to do it towards the camera so you guys can see better. And then lift and drain the water out, locking your material in place. And then you're going to dip and lift, dip and lift, dip and lift, dip and lift. Continue and repeat. Now you can see some larger stones in here. Go ahead and grab those out. Get your hand in the pan. See any large stones in there? Grab them. Get them out of the pan. Okay, I'm going to re-stratify in your direction here. We're getting down there. We're getting down to the point where these riffles are going to be too large. We're going to need to use the smooth side of the pan. Okay? Stratified. Now we're going to drain the water out and dip and lift. Dip and lift. Dip and lift. Dip and lift. Now as you get down to the finer material, you got to be more gentle. Now I have so little material. The material I have left is not very much, so I have to use the smooth side of the pan. but I can take all these stones out with my fingers. Just drag them through the water so they don't have any gold on them. Drag those stones through the water. Get them out of there. There's nothing wrong with getting your fingers in the pan and manipulating the material the way you need it to. Get those stones out. Now we're going to use the smooth side of the pan because I don't have enough material for those riffles anymore. So I'm going to stratify in the bottom corner. I'm going to drain the water out. And then I'm gently I'm going to dip and lift. Dip and lift. Dip and lift. Got to work with the river here because the river's got a mind of its own. Dip and lift. Dip and lift. Now if you want to get rid of that black sand, you can dip just part way to help get rid of that black sand out of there. You can see I got some small stones. I'm going to put a little more water in the pan, and I'm going to get those small stones out of the pan because those are going to make it hard for you. Okay, now we're getting right down there. We're going to stratify again. We're using the smooth side of the pan. This is where you need to be much more gentle. Dip and lift. Dip and lift. A little bit more. We just want to get a little bit more of that to wash out. This is a time where you could lose fine gold. You could lose flat gold, etc. So you got to be more gentle. It's a much more gentle action. But you need those stones to come out. I'm going to get those out with my finger. And then we're going to do what they call back pan. Put some water in the pan. Tap up here. All the heavies are going to go where your hand is. And look at that. Looks like we got a couple little pieces of gold. And my lead. Okay, now we can stop because I can see the gold. I'm going to move it with my finger. There's nothing that says you can't move the gold with your finger. Okay, now look here, I got more lead than I bargained for. I got 1, 2, 3, 4. I got all my lead. I got all my lead right here. I'm going to put that in the jar in just a moment, but more importantly, looks like we got 3 little pieces of gold. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I'm going to put my finger on the gold and I'm going to wash away that black sand. Because you want to segregate the gold from everything else so you can put it in your snuffer bottle. Don't hesitate to use your finger. Get it in there. Now I've got the gold. Looks like one piece of gold and a couple other pieces of something else. I got one piece of gold right there. I think you can see that. So that's how to do a, can you see that? Let's see, I can't, yeah. Here's a piece of gold right there. Beautiful yellow gold. So there you go. That's how you do a pan with a classifier screen and a few basic tools. Thanks for coming along.